The first time my wife announced she was pregnant, everyone in that private dining room stood up and cheered. Her mother cried into a linen napkin. My father gripped my shoulder like he had been waiting years to become a grandfather. Someone ordered another bottle of sparkling wine, even though Marielle held up her water glass and laughed like she was already making sacrifices for motherhood. I sat there with my hands folded under the table, staring at a framed ultrasound photo I had never seen before. Marielle turned toward me with wet eyes, placed one hand over her stomach, and whispered just loud enough for everyone to hear, "Now tell them you're leaving." That was how I became the villain in my own marriage. But that was not where it started. It started 9 days earlier in our garage, with rain ticking against the roof of my truck and a folded receipt sitting in my palm. I was looking for the registration papers in Marielle's glove box because her plate renewal was due. She had asked me to handle it, the way she asked me to handle anything boring, expensive, or inconvenient. The receipt was tucked behind the owner's manual. I almost missed it. It was from a hotel restaurant downtown, the expensive kind with low lights, valet parking, and steaks priced like medical bills. Dinner for 2. 2 glasses of wine. A dessert I knew she loved. Then, at the bottom, a room service charge transferred to a suite. The date was the same night Marielle told me she was helping her cousin move. I sat behind the wheel for a long time. The garage smelled like motor oil, wet concrete, and something else I could not name at first. Then I caught it. Men's cologne. Not mine. I did not storm into the house. I did not throw the receipt onto the kitchen counter. I took out my phone, photographed both sides, folded it along the same crease, and slid it back exactly where I had found it. That was the first smart thing I did. The second smart thing I did was check the driveway camera. At 2:13 in the morning, a silver coupe stopped in front of our house. Marielle climbed out slowly, laughing at something the driver said. The man got out too, tall, dark coat, polished shoes. He opened her door like he had done it before. Then he kissed her. Not a drunk mistake, not a goodbye peck, a familiar kiss. I knew him. Nolan Voss. Real estate developer. Expensive watch. Expensive smile. The kind of man who called every room a space, and every bad investment an opportunity. Marielle had introduced him months earlier as a client who needed design advice. Apparently, he needed more than that. I watched the footage 3 times, then 4. Each time, something inside me got quieter. At 5:40 the next morning, before the sun came up, I called a divorce attorney. When a calm voice answered, I said, "I need to know how to leave without losing everything." That was how I met Helena Price. She did not tell me to confront Marielle. She did not tell me to be brave, forgive, scream, or fight. She told me to collect records. Anger feels useful, she said. Evidence is useful. So I became useful. For the next few days, I copied bank statements, photographed valuables, scanned insurance policies, saved mortgage documents, and checked every account Marielle and I shared. That was when I saw the spending. Boutiques, spa charges, private dining rooms, cash withdrawals, hotel parking, luxury stores where Marielle used to say she was just looking. She noticed me pulling away. Of course she did. That was when she became affectionate in public. At a lunch with friends, she rested her hand on my arm and called me my steady one. At her mother's house, she kissed my cheek and said she did not know what she would do without me. At home, she locked her phone face down. Helena scheduled the divorce papers to be served after Marielle's birthday dinner. Both families would be there. I did not like the timing, but Helena said public service could prevent Marielle from spinning the first story alone. I thought I understood what that meant. I did not. The birthday dinner was in a private room at a restaurant with soft gold walls and candles floating in glass bowls. Daphne Rowe, Marielle's mother, had arranged the whole thing and acted like she was hosting royalty instead of 12 relatives and one tired husband. My father, Otis, sat beside me. He was old school in the way men get when life has made them simple but not soft. He believed in vows, responsibility, and doing the hard thing without complaining. That night, I could barely look at him. Before dessert, Marielle stood up holding a small gift bag. She looked nervous, but not surprised nervous. Rehearsed nervous. "I know tonight is supposed to be about my birthday," she said, smiling at everyone, "but Gavin and I have something bigger to celebrate." I felt the room tilt before she even reached into the bag. She pulled out a framed ultrasound photo. Then she said, "We're having a baby." The room exploded. Daphne covered her mouth and sobbed. Otis stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor. Marielle's aunt clapped. Someone shouted that this was the best news of the year. I stared at the image. A tiny gray shape, a name typed at the top, Marielle Mercer, a date from 2 days earlier. My first thought was not joy. It was math. 2 days earlier, she had told me she spent the afternoon getting her hair done. Marielle turned toward me, eyes shining like stage lights, and whispered, "Now tell them you're leaving." Daphne saw my face first. Her expression sharpened. "Why do you look horrified?" Every head turned. Marielle's mouth trembled. "Gavin has been distant," she said softly. "He's been talking like he wants out. I didn't know how to tell him before tonight." I opened my mouth, but she started crying before I could speak. That was enough. The room shifted against me. Daphne pointed one finger across the table. "You were going to leave her now?" "I didn't know about this," I said. Marielle flinched like I had slapped her. Otis looked at me with a disappointment I had never seen from him. "Whatever is happening between you two," he said low and hard, "you do not abandon your child." My throat closed. I wanted to say Nolan's name. I wanted to put the hotel receipt on the table. I wanted to ask how a pregnancy appeared, exactly when divorce papers were supposed to arrive. Under the table, Marielle grabbed my hand. Her nails dug into my palm. She leaned close, lips barely moving. "Mention Nolan, and I'll tell them you called the baby a mistake." That was the moment I understood. She had not announced a pregnancy. She had set a trap. The next morning, I called Helena and stopped the process server. Helena was quiet for a few seconds after I explained. "Do you believe she is pregnant?" she asked. "I don't know." "Then we move carefully," she said. "A man accused of abandoning a pregnant wife starts every conversation already losing." By noon, Marielle had posted the ultrasound online. The caption said, "Our miracle came when we needed it most." Congratulations poured in from people who had no idea my marriage had become a locked room. Marielle showed me the comments at dinner as if I should be grateful. "People are happy for us," she said. "For us," I repeated. She smiled. "Don't ruin this, Gavin." A week later, she created a baby registry. Designer crib, imported stroller, nursery furniture, a rocking chair that cost more than my first car. Total value, over $12,000. Daphne shared the registry in the family group chat with a message about supporting young parents. Young parents. I was 38, and I still had no appointment date, no doctor's name, no blood work, no proof beyond a framed image that had appeared like a weapon. So I painted the spare bedroom soft green. That was what everyone expected. I assembled the crib alone on a Saturday morning while Marielle sat downstairs scrolling through baby shower themes. Whenever family visited, she complained about nausea and pressed crackers to her lips. When no one was around, she ate takeout noodles and spicy wings without blinking. I found prenatal vitamins unopened behind perfume bottles. When I asked if I could come to her next appointment, she said, "The clinic allows patients only right now. Privacy rules." Which clinic? North Bank Women's Clinic. What time? She paused half a second too long. Thursday at 2. The next morning, I called North Bank from my truck. I did not ask for medical information. I knew they could not give me that. I simply said I was confirming an appointment time because I was arranging transportation for my wife. The receptionist asked for Marielle's birth date, then put me on hold. When she came back, her voice changed. "I'm sorry, sir. We don't show her scheduled for that day." I thanked her and hung up. That night, I asked Marielle about it. She did not panic. That would have been easier. She got offended. I cannot believe you called my clinic behind my back. I called to confirm the appointment. You called because you don't trust me. I asked because I want to be involved. No, she said, you want to interrogate me. Then she showed me a screenshot on her phone. Appointment confirmation. North Bank Women's Clinic. Thursday, 2 p.m. At first glance, it looked real. But I estimate construction projects for a living. My job is noticing numbers, dates, mismatched forms, and old addresses that cost people money. The clinic logo was blurry. The suite number was wrong. I said nothing. When Marielle went upstairs, I emailed the screenshot to Helena. Her reply came at 12:18 a.m. Do not confront her. This may be forged. The baby shower happened without my permission. Daphne called it a surprise, which meant she surprised me by filling my living room with balloons, relatives, finger sandwiches, and judgment. She gave a speech beside the fireplace about family duty. Real men step up, she said, looking straight at me, even when marriage gets hard. People clapped. Marielle sat on the sofa in a cream dress, one hand resting on her flat stomach, accepting sympathy like flowers. I smiled because Helena had told me to stay calm. But I started recording audio on my phone when Daphne accused me of trying to walk away from a blessing. Halfway through the party, I saw Marielle slip into the pantry. The door stayed open an inch. Her phone lit up in her hand. I saw the message before she sent it. He's almost ready to sign the refinance. I did not move. I just watched her press send. The next morning, Marielle told me we needed to meet with our mortgage lender. For the baby, she said. Medical bills, childcare, the nursery, a safer car. We need breathing room. The refinance would pull equity from our house and place a large sum into our joint account. Our house was not a mansion, but it was solid. I had put years of overtime into those walls. I had fixed the deck myself, replaced the water heater myself, paid extra whenever I could. Now Marielle wanted to turn that work into liquid money. For the baby. At the lender's office, she sat beside me and squeezed my knee under the table whenever the numbers sounded uncomfortable. I delayed signing by saying I needed one more employment document. Her fingers tightened. Nolan made his mistake 2 days later. Marielle left her phone on the kitchen counter while she went to shower. I was making coffee when the screen lit up. Nolan. Once he signs, we can breathe. I photographed it before the screen went dark. Then I sent it to Helena. My message was simple. It's not just cheating. They're planning something. 3 days later, the envelope arrived. White. Plain. Addressed to Marielle. North Bank Women's Clinic. I almost left it on the entry table. Then I saw the stamped words across the front. Corrected billing statement. Because the charges ran through our joint insurance policy, I opened it. Inside were records for a consultation, a blood test, and a pregnancy result from the week before the birthday dinner. Negative. I read it once. Then again. Then I sat down on the bottom step because my knees had stopped feeling like they belonged to me. There is a specific kind of silence that follows a lie when it finally dies. It does not feel like peace. It feels like all the noise in your life being cut at once. There is no pregnancy. There never was. Tucked behind the billing page was a printed note. Patient requested printed confirmation after reporting online portal discrepancy. I called Helena. She told me to scan everything, photograph the envelope, and put the original somewhere safe. Then I took the framed ultrasound from the nursery shelf. I scanned the image and searched it online. It took less than 10 minutes. The same image appeared on a stock medical website. Same angle. Same shadow. Same tiny curve. Only the name and date had been changed. Helena brought in a digital forensics contact. By the next afternoon, we had confirmation that the ultrasound image and appointment screenshot had both been altered. Now the story had bones. A fake pregnancy. A stock ultrasound. A forged appointment confirmation. A negative blood test. A refinance scheme. A message from Nolan. Cash withdrawals. Hotel receipt. And a wife who had turned both families against me before I could defend myself. Helena reviewed everything in her office while I sat across from her, hands locked together. Finally, she said, "We need her to repeat the lie clearly one more time." I looked at her. She slid a folder toward me, not in anger, not in a hallway. In front of witnesses. That was how I planned the gender reveal dinner. I told Marielle I wanted to make things right. She believed me because she wanted to. People like Marielle do not hear surrender in your voice. They hear what they think they earned. She became bright again, warm, playful. "I knew you would come around," she said, touching my cheek. I almost laughed. Instead, I ordered a white cake from a bakery across town. I invited both families to our dining room. I told them it would be small, intimate, meaningful. Daphne arrived first, carrying flowers and smug forgiveness. Otis arrived 10 minutes later. He hugged me stiffly, still disappointed but trying. The cake sat in the center of the table. White frosting, gold trim, no color inside. Because the cake was never the reveal. The reveal was under every chair. Sealed folders. Clinic records, the negative test, the stock ultrasound, the altered screenshot, refinance paperwork. Nolan's text, hotel receipt, spending records. Everyone sat down. Marielle wore pale pink and kept touching her stomach. Daphne kept dabbing her eyes before anything emotional happened. After dinner, Marielle stood near the cake. She smiled at me like a queen preparing to pardon a criminal. "Before we cut the cake, I want Gavin to apologize." The room went still. Daphne nodded immediately. A pregnant woman should never have to beg her husband for loyalty. My father closed his eyes. That hurt. Even then, it hurt. I stood slowly. Marielle lifted her chin. I looked around the table, at the people who had judged me, at the woman who had built the trap, at the empty nursery down the hall, at the cake, waiting for a child who did not exist. Then I said, "I'm sorry I let everyone believe there was a child without seeing the medical proof myself." Marielle's smile faded. Daphne frowned. "What does that mean?" I kept my voice even. "Please open the envelopes under your chairs." For a second, nobody moved. Then Otis reached down first. One by one, the folders came up. Paper slid against paper. Chairs creaked. Someone whispered, "What is this?" Daphne opened hers with irritation. Then she began reading. The color left her face so quickly it was like watching a curtain drop. Otis removed his glasses, cleaned them slowly, then put them back on and read the same page again. Marielle moved toward her mother. "Mom, give me that." Daphne held the folder away. "Marielle," her voice cracked. "Marielle, tell me this is not real." Marielle looked around the room, searching for the weakest face. "There was a miscarriage," she said. "No," I said. "The negative test was before the announcement. The clinic made a mistake." I placed the corrected billing statement on the table. They corrected the portal issue and printed confirmation. She pointed at the ultrasound. "That is private. You had no right." "That image is from a stock medical site." Her mouth opened. No sound came out. Daphne sank into her chair. Then the doorbell rang. Marielle flinched so hard everyone saw it. I walked to the front door and opened it. Nolan Voss stood there in a navy coat, hair damp from rain, looking annoyed before he looked afraid. Marielle had called him. Of course she had. Probably told him there was a family emergency. He stepped inside. Then he saw the folders. He saw me. He saw the cake. And he knew. I turned toward him in front of everyone. "Did you know there was never a baby when you told her to get me to sign?" Nolan's eyes went to Marielle. That was answer enough. But panic makes cowards talk. "Hold on," he said. "This was not my idea." Marielle spun toward him. "Don't you dare." He lifted both hands. "You told me he was going to leave. You told me you needed time. You said if he thought there was a baby, he would delay the divorce and sign the refinance." Daphne made a sound I had never heard from her before. Small, broken, almost animal. Nolan kept going because men like him believe confession is safer if they aim it at someone else. I said it was risky. She said he was loyal enough to fall for it. Marielle screamed his name. He snapped back, "You promised once the money cleared, you would handle him." The room erupted. Not loudly. Worse. Relatives stood. Chairs scraped. Daphne covered her mouth. Otis rose beside me, not speaking, but no longer sitting away from me. Marielle looked at her mother. Daphne looked down. She looked at Nolan. He stepped back. She looked at my father. He stared at the folder in his hands. No one came to save her. Then Helena walked in behind Nolan with a process server. Marielle saw the documents and shook her head. "No." Helena's voice was calm. "Marielle Mercer, you are being served." The papers went into Marielle's hands in front of the same table where she had tried to make me confess to a cruelty I never committed. Helena continued. "The filing includes evidence of infidelity, attempted financial manipulation, forged medical claims, and misuse of joint funds." Marielle stared at the papers. I said, "The refinance is canceled. The joint accounts are frozen. The house is protected under existing ownership documents." Otis turned to me then. His face had changed. Not softer, heavier. "I owe you an apology," he said. I nodded once because if I tried to answer, my voice would break. Marielle clutched the divorce papers against her chest. "Gavin, please," she whispered, "don't do this in front of everyone." I looked at the cake, at the fake ultrasound, at the clinic records, at her mother, who could not lift her eyes. Then I looked at Marielle. "You used a child who never existed to keep a husband you had already betrayed." Her lips trembled. I removed the fake ultrasound from the mantel and laid it beside the clinic records on the dining table. The truth looked small there. Just paper. Ink. Dates. But it was enough. The process server confirmed delivery. Helena gathered the signed acknowledgement. Nolan was already backing toward the door, exposed and useless. Marielle reached for my hand. I stepped away. Then I opened the front door. "Leave." She looked around the room one last time. No one moved. Not Daphne. Not Nolan. Not Otis. Not one person. Marielle walked out holding the divorce papers, and the door closed behind her. The dining room went quiet. The cake sat untouched. The folders stayed open. The fake ultrasound and real records lay side by side on the table. Justice was not loud. It was a sealed envelope, opened at the right table, in front of the right people. Sometimes the cruelest lies are not shouted. They are staged with smiles, family pressure, fake tears, and just enough shame to make an innocent person stay silent. But truth does not need to be louder than the lie. It only needs to arrive with proof, at the right moment, in front of the people who were taught to believe the wrong story. If this story kept you listening, subscribe for more betrayal, revenge, and justice stories where the truth finally gets the last word.